have to be doing double duty, your call. Generally, we do. Mark, you tell me. We tend to prefer that we share it rather than.
These days,
it's just
anymore.
it's just 5 pictures.
No. So Josh, what you need to know is I had the parents send me because that's so that they're not controlling the screen, so that I'm controlling it. And Mark, just so you know, Mark is a legend here on the Upper West Side. He's the former board chair, so he is my go-to for all questions on these types of things. So if he says it's okay, then I believe it to be okay.
Yeah, lately, here's Blanche, great, okay. Lately, even in preservation, we've been letting the architects share.
Oh, okay. So I'm being a toughie. I'm being a toughie, and I don't need to be.
You can be as tough as you want. You go, girl.
Josh, I just want to say hello to you.
Hello, Blanche. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Now that I'm on the screen.
Good. I may be having someone else join later. They said they would be able to attend, but they did have to take a family member to a doctor's appointment. So if they don't attend, it'll likely just be me. But if they do attend, I'll probably see them pop in, or they might say, "Hey, I'm here."
The order we're going to go in is the PS 333 folks, and then PS 165 co-president, PTA co-president, maybe coming in a few minutes late because he's coming from a PTA meeting. Okay. And then we'll go to you so that you can kind of address all things if you need to, rather than. Got it.
Yeah, I got your questions here. I kind of have them laid out. I think Blanche's first, followed by yours, Courtney, and then some that were brought up by some parents from 333. And yeah.
And we'll also, so what we'll do is we'll have the parents speak. We'll have you speak. We do take the committee member questions. Mm-hmm. And then so don't feel the need to go through absolutely. I had a lot of questions. So if you feel the need to expedite to get to members, that is absolutely also fine. And then and then we do have a public comment section. So
I'll try to speak as quickly and concisely as possible. So if I speak too fast, just let me know. I tend to speak a little quick whenever I'm running through questions. Hi, Lynn.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Josh. How are you doing? Hey, Courtney.
Hi. I too have been accused of speaking too quickly by basically everyone who knows me. So
I'm also guilty of this. So this is going to be a very fast meeting.
It's a New Yorker thing. I think all New Yorkers.
Everyone's on a time schedule. Everyone's on a schedule.
So funny.
Concise. Yeah.
Awesome.
Were you guys discussing earlier, right before I joined, the kind of overall structure? I know, Courtney, you had kind of emailed about it.
Yeah. So you guys are going to go first. So the structure here is you guys are going to go first, PS 333. Then we'll go PS 165. So Rodney, who's the PTA co-president from PS 165, may be coming in a minute or two late because he's coming straight from their PTA meeting.
Okay.
And then we'll go to Josh, who can kind of roll up all the questions at that point. And then we'll take committee member questions. And then we'll go to public. So that's kind of the framework.
Got it.
Josh, let me just explain. My questions were just giving you some ideas to what I was thinking about. Don't feel that you have to answer them point by point.
Agreed.
Okay.
You do what you think is the most important information for us to know. I do think it's good to think of the questions we sent through as kind of background. Here's how our thinking is. But you obviously know, listen, everyone who's on this call, this meeting tonight knows this topic better than we do. So we defer to your greater wisdom on all fronts, everyone. And I think this is also partly about learning and really looking for opportunities to make improvements and we're getting Zoom bombed. I will definitely be getting Zoom bombed by my two littles. It happens almost every time, just so you know.
What are Zoom bombs?
When the kids come in.
Oh, okay.
It's basically like a magnet my children see that I'm on a Zoom call and they want to see their faces on screen.
I'd say well trained. I'm not surprised. Great.
There was the ultimate Zoom bomb for us was on YEL was early on in COVID when one of our colleagues, of whom I won't name because of the story, got relieved of having to do bath time duty with her young children. But then they still wanted to see mommy, so they come barreling in, jumping on the bed like a trampoline in the all together. And we would have violated community standards everywhere across the country if we. Oh, there's a cutie. Hello.
See? Yeah, my bedroom door does not have a lock, and so the kids have realized that.
Courtney, I have one question about photos. So I sent you that link, and I know you
Yep,
got all
and
of
I've
those
got 'em.
photos.
Yep.
So should I just because I think like I will give the main like kind of background presentation part, and then Gee's probably going to handle question and answer and stuff. So do you want me to like ask you at a certain point?
Yep, just let me know when you want me to screen share. Yep.
Okay. And then some of it's like specific stuff, but you can just like, there are only 7 of them. So you can just.
Oh, wait, I have 6 for you guys. Hang
Maybe
on.
there's 6. Maybe there's 6.
Yeah, I have 6.
Okay. Just use your discretion. Put up whatever you want.
That's a dangerous offer. Hi, Ira. How are you? I think we're
Either we
still
have
waiting.
a lot of visitors or a lot of new people
We actually
today.
have a lot of visitors. We're still waiting for a fair number of our members, unfortunately. So I don't think we have a quorum yet. I'm counting. 1,
No, we don't.
2. We do not. 3, 4.
Ira,
Yeah,
we just want to thank you for your email about part of your past life
oh,
that you wanted
yeah.
to share with us. And at some point, I'm sure we're going to ask you to elaborate as quickly or briefly as you want to about that experience when it comes to timeline and so on. So I just want to put you on alert about that, but thank you for that
Yeah,
interesting email.
I also do, currently I do exterior, part of my work is exterior envelope repair for other city and state agencies. So this is my alley.
Okay.
This is like talking to Andrew about subways.
Well, Andrew isn't here, so okay.
That's
You'll
funny.
be it.
I remember the 9 train.
I do too. The 1-9.
Well, I remember the
Nine?
double R, so you know,
I-
and the QB.
that outdoes me.
So I think
I
we
tried to
still
promote SEMA to panelists and it's not taking. I'm not sure why.
Does it count as long as she's here?
Oh, of course.
Oh, and there's Beverly. So I think now.
Bob is here and Seema is here.
There we go. Okay.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. Now I think we are in good shape.
How many outside viewers do we have? Do you know yet?
21
21. Yeah.
and counting.
Mark, do you think we're at 6 okay to go?
I think you're ready to go.
There we go. All right.
Oh, and Helen Rosenthal has joined us. Welcome, Helen. Okay. Okay. We have warmed up.
It's not Helen, it's Cindy. I'll change my name.
Well, we're very glad to have you too.
Thank you.
Okay. And there's
So
Kristen.
We
Kristen's
are
coming
ready.
in.
Okay.
So now we should be in good shape.
Okay. Well, welcome to everybody who is here and those who are to come. This is a topic that's not new to YEL. We've been through this before. Obviously, it needs our attention again because it is certainly rearing our head. And Mark, I just want to note so that everyone will know you have been heavily involved in this issue for some years back. So we will turn to you from time to time for your expertise. But welcome everyone. Sorry you have to be here with us again on this topic, but let's hope with the new administration we can get things rolling and with some successful results. So with those few words, let's get started. Courtney?
Yeah, sure. So we have 3 groups presenting tonight. So we're joined by 3 parents from PS 333 who are going to talk to us about the scaffolding that they've had up at their school, which is a co-sited school for many years. And then in a few minutes, we will also, I just see Rodney joined. We're going to be joined by Rodney Mendez, who is PTA co-president of PS 165, which is co-sited with Mott Hall 2. Also has had scaffolding, has had a construction project with scaffolding. And then we're very happy also to be joined by Josh Adams from the New York City School Construction Authority. He'll be answering some questions, taking some questions, talking both about the projects and at the sort of macro level about construction projects at schools in New York City. After that, we will take committee member and community board member questions for all 3 groups, and then we will go to public for any comments or questions. So that's the framework of how this is going to go. If you have questions and you are a member of the public, when we get to that section, I will let you know. You can raise your virtual hand and we will promote you to speak. So that's how we're gonna run this. If you have any other questions or any issues come up, please let us know in the chat. And we'll kick things off with David Pincus, Lynn Fang, and Guy Stemper from PS 333.
Hi, Courtney. Thanks so much. My name is David Pincus. And as a former MCB4 committee, community board member for 10 years, and I was chair of their quality of life and of their construction task force, it's kind of nice to be back at an official meeting again, especially when it concerns construction and the challenges that presents to residents and in this case, students and teachers. I have a 7-year-old child in 2nd grade who has been horribly affected from in the classroom by the inability to hear her teacher speak because of the incessant drilling, which is an issue we'll probably be talking about a little bit as opposed to just the scaffolding issue. But it is a significant problem, and I think the community board is really positioned to advocate on the behalf of future construction sites in front of schools that can, adversely affect just life in the school. So I look forward to chatting about that in a bit.
I am Guy Stamper. My son Nico is in kindergarten at 333. I actually grew up on 93rd Street. And while the scaffolding has not been there since I was his age, it feels like it. I'm hopeful that it comes down as soon as possible. And I am a lawyer, and we just had a 2nd kid. And I'm hopeful that Willa too is not, when she goes to 333, I don't even want to get there, but she's only a few weeks old. So I'll turn it over to Lynn, but thanks for having us, and look forward to this conversation.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lynn. My son, Arthur, just started kindergarten at 333 in the same class as Guy's son, Nico. We live in the neighborhood on 97th and West End and have for a while. So it's a short walk to school. So we're around on after hours and on weekends too, to kind of like look at stuff. And, it's it's a problem that I know is prevalent in New York City, and we're hoping that you guys can help us in our endeavors to finish this very long-standing project that hopefully is near completion. So to give everyone just like a brief background, so MSC, Manhattan School for Children, aka PS333, sits in a building that has also 2 other schools. There has been scaffolding up to repair issues with the roof and the facade. The scaffolding has been up for over 7 years and covers every external surface of the building. Now, Courtney, there's a bunch of photos that you have, if you wouldn't mind screen sharing some so everyone can get a sense of what, let's see, which one. Yeah, any of these, that's a very good indicative one. The SCA, we've spoken to Josh, we've met with him actually on site with some other parents the other week. And the SCA's most recent update and estimate for substantial completion is September 2022, with final completion 3 months later. So the end of next year, a year from now, essentially. Now, this timing, which we all know will inevitably get delayed further because it is construction, is just not acceptable, really. We can't have our children starting another school year going to school on a construction site like this. And our ultimate goal, which we think is very reasonable and doable, is to have construction totally finished, meaning final completion, DOB sign-off, sidewalk shed, scaffolding removal, etc., by the time school starts next fall. Which then means, substantial completion needs to really be done by June, which then gives everyone the summer to do all the final sign-offs and get all the permits that are necessary. Guy and I talked to the principal at MSC, who said that during the summer months, all 3 schools, like the entire building, is fully closed. So the contractor should and can be working all day, every day, and taking advantage of that time when there's no students in the building. Now, the current construction, as you can see, has an enormous negative impact on MSC and also the entire block, and I'm sure the surrounding residents. Now, one special feature about MSC is that it's an ICT school, an integrated co-teaching school, meaning a substantial portion of the students have varying degrees of special needs and abilities. Now, I see every morning at drop-off the hazards that these students and their caregivers and teachers have to navigate. For example, there's always large construction vehicles parked on the street. Courtney, I think there's actually a photo specifically of that. And that then blocks, an entire half of the street, an entire lane, which then leads to school buses being stacked up down the street and a huge line of, traffic that's immovable. There are also various COVID issues that are caused by the construction, one of which being that the outdoor spaces that the children usually have for recess and just general outdoor time, there is supposed to be 3 separate distinct areas. Now, 100% of one of those areas and over 50% of a second one are now completely allocated and fenced off for storage of construction materials and equipment. There's definitely photos of those that I've set, Courtney, if you wouldn't mind clicking through some of those. The result is that everyone spends less time outside since all the classes have to then stagger because there's fewer kids that are able to be outside at the same time. Other COVID issues are like social distancing, which is, I think, pretty impossible given the construction vehicles and the sidewalk shed, which take up most of the area on the sidewalk that's already pretty narrow. And the 3rd to 8th graders line up for drop off and pickup on the sidewalk outside of the school under the sidewalk shed. Now, drop off for the kindergarten to 2nd grade classes usually occurs inside here, where you're the picture right now. This is where those are like kindergarten and 1st graders. This is like what we call the big yard. And this is what has been like over 50% taken up by, the materials and the fence in the back. Now, because these materials, they must be sitting on some sort of drainage system, because when it rains, this entire area floods and all of the students and teachers and parents that drop off are forced to then kind of congregate in this narrow corridor that's extremely cramped and makes it very, very chaotic And there's, it's not virtually no sort of social distance. It's actually impossible to socially distance in that scenario. And these are just, pretty serious health risks that we don't think that our kids should have to encounter on a daily basis. And they're easily fixable. They would be 100% eliminated in their entirety the moment the construction ends, the equipment goes away, and the scaffolding comes down. And then there's, certain obviously less tangible, but still significant negative impacts on all the kids, their daily life. They have very little natural light in the classrooms. There's not enough place and space to run around and play. They don't ever get to see the outside of their school and really appreciate it. It's a very beautiful, landmark building, but you would never know it because all you see is construction. There are kids who graduated from MSC. So MSC is a kindergarten through 8th grade school. There are kids who graduated, I think, who, have never seen anything other than the current state. So we've been trying to, for the last couple of months, we've been trying to work with local government. We've had meetings with, the incoming Manhattan Borough President and MSC's administration to really figure out who at the SCA is in the best position to provide us visibility into the status of the project and expedite construction schedule. We know there's a project officer assigned to MSC, but when we asked for a meeting, he told us he communicates only with the school and the principal, and he's the one who directed us to Josh. And we met with Josh, like I said, last week and walked him kind of through all of these construction related issues. And we discussed specific concrete ways that we think the SCA can speed up construction, which I hope Josh is going to speak to soon. And I know he was following up internally about. And at this point, I think what we really want to see and what we really hope CB7 can help us with is making sure the SCA is accountable on two primary fronts. The first one is providing us, visibility into the project. We've already asked for these things twice. Project construction schedule, phasing possibilities, project budgets, including any remaining contingency that can be used, stuff like that. And then the second front is implementing any available measure to really hit substantial completion by next June and final completion before school starts next year. We think that the things we suggested and we talked about are all pretty easily adopted. And if they were actually enforced starting now, they would result in very clear improvements in timing. So we know that the general contractor has work permits for Saturdays from the DOB, so they can work all day, but they very rarely work on Saturdays. They right now reserve Saturdays only for delays that occur during the week or special projects. We would ask that they work all Saturdays, everything they're permitted to, use based on the DOB permits. And the contractor is supposed to be sending 60 to 70 workers, according to the SCA, on site every day. Like I said, a lot of us obviously live in the area, and I don't think we've ever seen more than a maximum of 20 people at any given time on site. So, having the SCA really drill down with their contractor on how many people are coming to the site every day, and are you actually sending 60 to 70 people? Because if not, that's a very easy way to increase production, give them, have more people work on it. And the last thing that we talked about was phasing of the project to concentrate all efforts on the big and little yard, which is where most of these photos are from, and which are the outdoor areas that have the highest foot traffic. It's also where the flooding occurs. So that's the biggest area outside. And to make sure that these, everything that's on this area, the construction equipment, the scaffolding around it, the sidewalk shed in the front, these are completed and prioritized first in the project, because those will have the most immediate impact on the students. So we asked Josh, and I think we're hopefully going to do it, is to agree to a monthly meeting to discuss the progress of construction, overall timing updates. Josh said he would send us, 2-week look ahead schedules when he sends them to the school administration. It would be great if CB7 would be part of those check-ins and help us make sure that, there's attendance, but also that our concerns are taken seriously. And I'm curious because I heard at the beginning that this is not your first rodeo. So I'm curious what methods you guys have used in the past that were effective for advocating for similar issues. Everything really boils down to making sure that the SEA understands that their current construction schedule needs to be revised. And then making sure they actually do revise it and then follow it and are not slipping in terms of any of the dates. So that's what our ultimate goal is. And we're more than happy to work with everyone to make sure that happens and do what we can. And we're all available to, serve this greater purpose.
All right. Great. Okay, so why don't we move now to Rodney Mendez?
Excuse me, hey Courtney,
yeah.
can I just throw in one thing
Sure.
about this construction activity that was not entirely related to the renovation work? We had for 3 months, we had Con Ed doing street work and through the DOT, and they were jackhammering every day, hours at a time, with the COVID protections being what they are. All the windows are open on the north facing side of the building facing the street, where there is probably 30 classrooms. What the result was, and speaking, my daughter is in one of those classrooms, is that we had teachers in tears because they were unable to be heard. They could not teach, that kids were being taken from the classroom out into the corridors in order to be given lessons and to do reading time. There was no extra space in the building to move classrooms temporarily. Now this issue went on for 3 months, and it's why I actually got Gail Brewer, who I knew from Gail was very interested in this aspect of this problem. And admittedly, I think that the street construction work has finished now because we haven't had any incidences of noise in the last 2 weeks, but it was of such significance that the idea that there could be, with DOT and SEA and all the related construction activities just going on for months at a time during school hours with no effort. We worked with, we reached out to the principal, and we just were never able to make headway with the subcontractors, the contractors, trying to find, I know there's ways to mitigate drilling and street construction work because it's done all the time. And we just ran into a roadblock. And I think my daughter lost, 2 to 3 months of, a good part of her education. And this is going to happen again in some schools. I hope it doesn't, but it's something to be aware of. And it's something we'd like you, I just wanted to add it to our litany of complaints here. But I thought Lynn did a great job of kind of, charting out the bigger school picture, but this school construction noise was horrifying. And we hope that no child or teacher ever has to suffer through something like that again. So there you have it. Thank you.
And we don't, and just to add, David and to Lynn, just to quick piggyback real fast, we don't have the student perspective on this Zoom, mostly because it's too late, despite my son trying to get on here. But I did see in the chat that one of the parents mentioned that their 5th grader has never seen the outside of the building. And then there was also a student in the 4th grade now who wrote an essay detailing, the traumatic experience that this has had on her. So she may still be awake, but she's not here on this Zoom. I just want to convey that, it's not only angry parents. And the emotional impact is real, as Lynn said. And at a subsequent meeting, I hope we don't need one. We are prepared to, if she's able, to let the 4th grader, I'll let, my son come also and talk about it. I hope we don't have to get there. But I just want to add that as well. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, let's go to Rodney Mendez, who is the PS 165 PTA co-president, to talk about their experience at their school with scaffolding and construction.
Hi, thanks. Thanks for the invite. Hello, everyone. Good evening. I'm Rodney, PS 165. We're located on 109th Street between Broadway and Amsterdam. Interesting to hear, we have similar issues as you do at 333. But little bit of a difference. We got you beat. Well, from what I understand, you got like 7 years at this problem. We've got on the books, it's 10 years. We've got an assistant principal who's been there for 11 and says she's never seen the building without the scaffolding. So somewhere along the line, that's in. So it's like, we'll stick with the 10. So it's a 10-year, $17 million roof project. It's just a roof. We've got a beautiful cathedral, landmark building. And yeah, 10 years, 17 million, that's a lot. That's a long time. And there's been a lot that's gone into that, where, over time, I guess it just becomes part of the landscape and people just get used to it. And with scaffolding as it is, I don't know if Courtney, you had a chance to get my pictures. I don't know if I snuck them in there. You can show them if you want there. So with scaffolding, of course, you have, where our concerns are, with quality of life, so I got parent who's like, I had to change my kid's shoes 3 times. Why? Because as we were doing drop off or pickup, he's like, oh, watch out, there's the poop. And he's like, oh, don't worry about it. There's poop all over the place. I've already had to change my kid's shoes 3 times. And I'm like, 3 times? And I'm like hearing, 10 years. I'm like, what's going on here? Like, are we just like got used to this? Like, and then, of course we have, everything else that comes with it with, under scaffolding, people doing things after hours, and you find, things you don't want to see happening, and permanent in the staging areas for the construction equipment are there, and now the staging area is actually empty. So that's kind of like adding insult to injury, so to speak. And with that, we have teachers who rely on their precious parking, that they can no longer park in front of our school. So there they have to pay for parking lots in the area, and it's been expensive for them. Outside of the quality of life part, we also have, a big thing. And I remember when I first actually saw 333 a long time ago, I had, we were doing something around there. I'm like, oh, I guess is this a school and is it closed? I kind of had that same feeling when I was seeing my school where we went when we were initially enrolled. But it hurts enrollment. And that's a big deal for schools, and for principals, for parents, prospective parents. Our school is great. We love our school. We have a lot of great things to say about the school, but enrollment is so critical, particularly now, in times of COVID. People are relying on information that they find online, and and they can't tour the schools, so they're just like left to whatever they can hear from people, but for both schools, I would say, enrollment's a huge thing, and since we can't tour because of COVID, who wants to go to the spooky school that kind of just looks like it's set like that forever. I had moved into the neighborhood 7 years ago, and I was just like, oh, there's that school. And I said, hey, when's the scaffolding coming down? Not knowing it had been up for a long time already. So enrollment's like a really big deal. And we're really trying to work with the school to try to help that part, to see how we can really bring some life into what goes on inside the school for parents, looking for a place for their children. So that doesn't help. Then, the construction staging area, of course, going back to the teacher parking, it takes it up, if we can get that done. The social emotional learning part, that's something coming out of COVID, being on the school SLT was another another measurement, outside of like math and reading. How do we measure social emotional learning for the students? That's a really, really big thing where, the DOE wants to know, like, if it's okay. I would argue that, scaffolding and looking at, this gloomy schools that are just like permanent, ending these projects, particularly at this juncture in our, in our lives and history where we're at, would be a really morale booster for our students and for our teachers. Let's not forget the morale booster that the teachers will have. We have teachers who've been there for 10 years as well. Some of them, they've been their only gig. So this is all they've known. And, eventually that wears on you after a year of doing remote learning and remote teaching and coming back and it's still there. I'm sure it would do wonders for the psyche for not just the students, but also the teachers of, seeing this come down. Because I at least speak for my school, I know there's an immaculate building behind there, hiding, just waiting to show itself. And that would be really, really welcoming for our schools, for our entire community. So now on the side of the SEA, my big issue and what led us to start, kicking up a little bit of a storm was we had Josh on. Josh is great. Unfortunately, his colleague, I can't say the same for, who came on to a town hall meeting that we had. And his approach was, typical general contractor, stereotypical type, like this is the job here, we're gonna go, and I'm like, where does it come in on that conversation, particularly that he's been invited on here? Not just that, but I'm just like, the overall, and this is a big point for me for this group is, and feedback to go back to the people in power, is that lessons learned here is that the SEA really needs to understand that they're working on not just regular commercial projects. They're working on institutions for learning that they cannot stand having these prolonged jobs. Some of us want to say, yeah, maybe it's corruption. They just want to squeeze out more dollars. They want to, there's just this, not enough oversight or whatever it might be. It's definitely not a good rep for the SCA, but is it like part of their mission and built into their public facing reps that they are working on institutions for learning and not just like another fancy high rise or some commercial building that they're, this is a place that cannot, it can't wait. And a roof job, 10 years, $17 million, that's a big deal. So I really wish that they would because his feedback was not talking anything about the kids. It was just like, we got this, blah, 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 blah. It wasn't, I understand the kids, this is happening, this and that. I'm coming from that perspective. That's a big deal. So maybe they need to kind of pivot and remember what their core mission is or who their actual target audience is or their end users. So there's that. That's my thing. It's unfortunate that we're here. What we've been told by the SCA as of October, I think it was, early November, was that our 10-year, 11-year project should be wrapping up in August, and it'll take 2.5 months to take the scaffolding down, which will put us somewhere in November. Which equally, I agree that maybe we should be able to get all of this wrapped up, scaffolding down by August, so we don't have to enter in the school year. Because okay, cool, the job finishes in August, but seriously, the scaffolding job coming down spring school is not cool. That's super disruptive, right? Just in and of itself. So August, and we keep going. We got the school safety meetings, every single meeting. The project's been pushed back 2 more months. 3 months, every single safety meeting, it's always been pushed back. So this is where it's
Yeah,
like, no
I
more
think-
pushback. You don't got room for that. Look, you can get like a gigantic crane and like get some people, fix up the roof. Because the thing is that there's only 2 or 3 people that can be up on the roof at a time, because, we can build skyscrapers that go up to, 100 floors, and the guys up there, and, I'm sure it's not windy and it's super safe on the 100th floors you're building, but a roof of a building of like, I don't know, 10 floors or something is something super unique and out of this world, and needs to take at least 20 years to finish.
Rodney, sorry to interrupt. It
All
sounds
right, I'm done.
It's okay. No. My question for you is, I just want to make sure I heard correctly. It sounds like your timeline sounds really similar in that
Yes.
it's the actual construction piece at the end of the summer, and then the process that happens afterwards. Okay. And Kristen has her hand up. Kristen, one of the things that I think before you joined, we're gonna talk to these parents, and then we're gonna go to Josh Adams, who's here with us from the SCA.
I just want to add, I think there are parents from some of the schools that are co-located with these two in the participants who might want to speak as well. Like, there
Yeah,
should be.
when we get to the public, what I said in the beginning is when we get to the public session, we will have them raise hands if they want to speak in the public part. We're going to go to Josh, and then we'll do board members and committee members, and then we'll go to the public. Great. Okay. Blanche, you want to introduce Josh for us?
Sorry, did you introduce Josh?
I'll just introduce Josh.
I'm sorry. I thought you said Lance.
Oh, no, Blanche.
Oh, Blanche. I'm sorry.
Oh, I thought you said Lynn. That's
It doesn't sound as if Josh needs any introduction.
Perhaps he needs no introduction.
It sounds as if he is part of the team, shall we say.
Well,
but as you all know, Josh is from the SCA. He obviously is a part of the whole process and problems that you all are going through. And I would have to say, from everything we've heard, Josh, I know you're relatively new to the position. And why don't we just leave it open to you and for you to say what your impressions have been. You have a litany of questions from me and from Courtney that you don't have to answer question by question, but you get a general sense of. After you've spoken, I know I might jump in and ask some questions about procedure in terms of oversight on the constructions, plural, and so on. So Josh, it's all yours.
Okay. Well, thank you again, Blanche, for that introduction. Courtney, thank you for having me here, and all the parents from both PS 333 and the other schools. I believe we got, 258 and sorry, I had it written down here somewhere. In the other schools and 165. Listen, I empathize with you when it comes to the timing of this work. The time frame that it's taken to reach almost completion now for both projects. I agree, it's taken quite some time, but hopefully we're nearing the end of these projects and we can get out of the school and allow the students to learn in a better environment. So I just want to go over a couple things for both 165 and PS 333. I think I'm going to save those questions for that Blanche had sent me to ask for later. They're just some general questions. So for PS 165, this project here it is a roof upgrade project. And PS 333, we're doing an exterior mod project, which includes parapets, rooftop, and exterior masonry at the school. For 165, our current timeline of completion as Rodney had mentioned, is around August of 2022. That's substantial completion. meaning we completed all the work and we're getting inspections for the project for all the exterior elements of the building. For PS 333, substantial completion is September of 2022. Same thing, all the exterior work has been completed, we're waiting inspections. And then for both projects, we allot a 3-month gap that allow us to resolve any issues that are found following the inspections, such as any additional work that the inspector observes needs some fine tuning. During this time frame, also there's punch list items that we would resolve. For example, maybe the sidewalk shed has done some damage to the sidewalks or something like that. We would resolve those issues as well. So as far as 165, so yes, we've been here quite some time. This project has faced a number of issues, particularly some prior contractor compliance at this project. When we brought in the new contractor, we had installed some additional scaffolding and observed some major cracks on the roof, as well as some missing steel piers on the building. So the original completion was supposed to be on December 2021. But as you know, for all private and public projects, we were hit with a COVID-19 and we had some delays for both these projects, which pushed us back about 8 to 9 months. As for PS 333, there were issues discovered during the demo phase of the project with the bond of the face brick to the backup brick. This caused delays because we had to inspect or we had to investigate not only that area, but the rest of the building and design an acceptable solution for implementation. There are also other facade issues that we observed during local law 11 reviews and COVID-19 delays as well. So I'm just gonna describe some other issues with PS 333. Forgive me, I'm not an architect, I'm not an engineer. So if there are some follow-up questions on these, I'll likely take them back to our folks just to clarify them for you. So the building was built with what is called a Flemish bond, which means that the face brick is installed long ways into the backup wall of the building. This is done every few courses and every few feet on the center, which acts as an anchor for all the face bricks on the facade. While doing demo for the contract work, it was discovered that some of the bonding bricks were cracked, so they were not holding the face brick to the building. This was a safety concern not only for the school but for the SCA as well that we wanted to resolve, which led to a lot of probes and investigations. The result of this was that we had additional work to install threaded rods on the facades deemed by the architect of record to be in bad condition. In other areas, we did total replacement of the face brick, and all this corrective work that we are doing or in the process of doing was not part of the original contract and delayed the completion of it as well as COVID-19. We are obviously happy that we found these issues. We want to address them. We don't want to leave them there and have any further deterioration of the building. So let me just continue on some other questions here. We received a question about regular progress meetings. I know that Lynn asked about them. Lynn, I think we Tatiana and I and yourself, we were all included on an email about our regular progress meetings. We do hold regular progress meetings with the principal and school custodian, I believe both at 333 and PS 165. I think in the email, she did say that a PTA rep can join. I believe that should be a PTA rep from the 3 schools, is my understanding, that are within the building. So during those meetings, if the PTA wants to send a rep, then you can come to those monthly meetings. We hold those once a month. I'm not sure of the exact dates.
Is there a reason there can only be one PA rep?
I believe that's up to Tatiana.
Okay.
Or I think you got to follow up with Tatiana. She had stated one rep. For the
Okay.
meeting.
So if she's okay with multiple reps, the SCA would be fine with that too, attending the meetings, these monthly meetings.
Well, Tatiana stated, I think the meetings were to bring up issues regarding the school's safety versus the project itself. You could always send me an email as well yourself and any PTA reps from 165, I'll include it here in the chat room or in the chat box.
So
for any
is it
follow-up.
possible to have specific construction status check-in meetings that aren't necessarily school safety issues, but really just the project and where we are and how much progress has been made since the last meeting? Is it possible to do that separately from, what's already ongoing?
Well, those are the same meetings, the ones that we have with the principal, custodian, and RPO, project officer. I'm included in those meetings. Sure enough, if there are any questions during those meetings that you would like to ask, that come up during that meeting, then you could draft them up and send it to me, and then I'll respond to them either by email or we can discuss it during the next meeting, if that's more of a useful approach for you.
Okay.
How confident are you on the revised timeline, and how do we ensure that the revised timeline is something that we remain on?
How confident we are at the current timeline we have now?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you had mentioned that 165 would be completed by August. How confident are you on that, and how do we ensure that we stay on that?
Well, we're having CM, which construction management within the SCA. We have our own progress meetings in addition to the progress meetings that happen with the principal, that we follow up with the contractor. If there are any issues that they say they're having, then we, provide that information to the principal as well. But they provide regular updates to us on the progress of the project. Currently, right now, we don't see any current barriers to us having the deadline or the ending of the project around August of 2022. So we're still on track for that date.
Got it. And are there sort of ramifications if it kind of extends further beyond that, or what are your thoughts there?
You mean like for the contractor?
Yeah.
Well, if there's any unforeseen instances, for example, if we're working and we observe something else that might be unsafe or needs resolution, if it's an extensive issue that could push the deadline back, we're obviously going to fix it. We can't just leave it that way.
Okay.
So I'm just going to run through some of the questions I think that were brought up. I'm going to go through David's questions regarding loud noise in the classrooms for the drilling. The SCA does not work during school hours. We only work after school hours. Now, I believe this project is 165, no, 333. I believe we were there from 3:30 to 11:30. Now, there will be workers mobilizing at that time, but if there's instances of classroom activity, we may work on a different side of the building until it clears out, and then we'll go ahead and move on with the construction on the side where there may have been after school programs. As far as the Con Ed drilling, I can't really speak to the Con Ed drilling. I'm not sure if they've completed their work or not, but there should be no work going on at the school while there's classroom activities taking place. Lynn, again, SCA, we do not work when the building is occupied. As far as summer, during that 3 months period when the school is closed during the summer, our workers will be working day hours. I will follow up regarding if they can work day and night during that time. I'm gonna confirm that in addition to the Saturdays, which I'm still trying to confirm for you. But we will work during day hours. Now, I know there's some adjacent neighbors probably in this meeting, not only to 165 and PS 333. I understand that there's concerns of noise levels, and I get that. Again, I'll follow up internally and get this answer for you about Saturdays. We don't particularly want to place another burden on the immediately adjacent neighbors who usually deal with our construction noise Monday through Friday during the duration of this project. Adding another day for them might place an additional burden, but again, it's something that we'll follow up on. As far as the flooding in the schoolyard for PS 333,
did you? I think there was a second part to Lynn's question about I don't know if the school break. There's a week off. Will the workers be working?
Yes. Okay. During school breaks, day hours.
Day
I'll follow up.
That one
I'm gonna confirm on that also for you guys. Okay. Where was it? The DSF drainage issue. I did confirm with our PO and who conferred with the contractor. I don't believe we're having any drainage issues within the staging area or flooding within the staging area that I'm understanding. But we're going to coordinate, we're going to work with DSF to see if they can try to clear that drainage problem in that play yard. I believe they were trying to snake it and clear it out, but they were having some difficulty. I'll contact the director of facilities for this school and try to coordinate with them to see if they can try to clear that out. That is a specific school issue. I know there was complaints also about probably garbage, or I believe under the sidewalk sheds. Again, that is also a school issue. But we'll forward these concerns to the custodian of both schools if this issue is at both schools, and we'll try to ensure that they're doing the proper cleanings. I know there were complaints from the community as well regarding homeless concerns. I've been working with Goddard for both PS 333 and M165. The most recent M165 inspection by Goddard did not confirm any homeless individuals during that time. If you could, if the community could compile times or locations where they see them, we can try to work with Goddard to have them go out there during those times and try to locate these individuals. That would be, you have provided some times. I gave them the times, they went out there during those times, but they didn't observe anything. If there's a specific location or area of concern, I could let them know to have them go out there more often than not. Okay.
Josh, you also, Sydney Carnell from Councilmember Helen Rosenthal's office she has her hand up, and it seems she has a question.
Sure.
Yeah, hi, Josh. Nice to see your face. We've
Hi, Cindy.
communicated a lot.
Yes.
So I only started in this job September of 2020, and I would say within a month, I started hearing about 333 from the neighbors, the local neighbors. Josh happens to be the third rep from the SEA that our office has dealt with. He's the third person who's been on this particular project in the past 15 months. So, and Josh is pretty new to the game. We had Steve Twozzolo for quite a while, and then we had Ben Goodman, and now Josh inherited that. Just a couple of things. I know that throughout the time with all three of you, there's been sort of a 2-week look ahead that you've been providing for the local residents. I haven't heard from parents so much as I've heard from people who live around there and there is a tension I'm hearing between what's good for parents and what's good for people who live right there, because, parents want stuff to go on when the kids aren't there all through the night. The community is very upset when work happens at night. So there is a tension there. But this 2-week look ahead that you guys provide to the community, do you provide that to the parents?
I think I maybe had mentioned it to Lynn during our in-person meeting, saying if she wanted to compile some emails or whatnot, we can include those folks.
I mean, if you have a 2-week look ahead, everybody should get it, right? Like everybody who's a stakeholder, everybody who cares about this, it's already done. It's nothing. It's just click a button and everybody can have it. And to me, that makes a lot of sense. Number one. Number two, I know at one point, Ben Goodman, I mean, you're talking about who can come to meetings and stuff, but Ben Goodman had a meeting with one of the local buildings in the neighborhood with their board. So I know that, there is precedent for having sort of a meeting, and my experience really is that when there's a lack of information, that's when it actually makes things worse. So I would really encourage you to, if you can, meet with as many stakeholders as possible, because clearly people want information here. I know when Ben Goodman had the meeting with that building, there was a guy, Warren Teicher, who I don't know, may or may not be on this.
Oh, that's is that PS 333?
I'm pretty sure. Well, if it wasn't Warren, it was somebody.
I speak with both of those, both of them.
Yeah.
Warren,
So I mean,
Mira.
they've had meetings and follow-ups, and again, there are a lot of questions, and even since I've been in the office, so in the past 15 months, the timeline has changed drastically, and of course, COVID was blamed for that. But even when I first came in, it was supposed to be done by like this month. So I know that things have been extended, but that's, again, important to keep people apprised of hiccups and measure expectations. Because the worst thing is when someone asks the question and you say, oh yeah, it's, January of 2027. And they're like, wait a minute, when did that change? So I think that the 2-week look ahead and even like the further look ahead, I just think since you have the information, you should share it. So anyway, that's all I wanted to say. You're not going to have to deal with me anymore anyhow, Josh.
It's okay. You've been very kind and helpful as well.
But I'm sure that Gail Brewer's staff is going to be reaching. I'm sure that the same folks who reach out to our office are going to be reaching out to her office and will want to be kept in the loop as well. So that's all I wanted to say. Sorry. Thanks.
Thank you, Cindy.
Thanks.
So yes, we can provide those 2-week look aheads for the projects. As far as I believe there was, I did want to go through one question here. I think there was a question regarding what factors impact timelines for these projects. So I just wanted to clarify that budget does not impact the timeline or completion of all our projects. All our projects are fully funded through our capital plan. Impacts on timeline are typically caused by unforeseen factors. For example, issues that we reserved at 165 and 333 that required additional review and work. We are typically constrained by our work hours from 4 p.m. to 12 a.m. We can't work at like private projects do during normal work hours. And in addition, they are able to receive after hours variances if they do apply for them as well. And as far as our workers, I did reconfirm with our PO. Again, I brought up those issues about them observing less than the 60-70 number that the GC provided. Again, the GC did state that it was 60 to 70 workers that are on site. Again, it's a very large building. I think I'll try to go out there myself to try to observe this issue during that time, maybe around 4:30 or so. They should be all there at that time. I'll try to confirm that on my end. Try to go out there next week and confirm that number for you. Well, I probably won't count them all one by one, but I will go out there to just observe and see if that issue is something can be resolved or is actually really happening. I'm not saying you guys are making it up, but I just want to confirm that our GC is telling us what they should be doing. If there are any questions that I missed, I don't know if you guys want to open up for questions right now. There'll probably be some things that will come up that I have written here that I probably didn't go over. I think I covered some of those issues. Did I mention homeless individuals at 165? Sorry, there's just a lot of information here. Okay. Okay, you want to open it up for questions, if that's okay?
There was also.
Oh, wait, I wanted to show photos. That's what I wanted to do. Sorry, Geek. Sorry. Can I just share my screen real quick? I just wanted to show some photos of 333. Again, just want to reiterate, I'm not an engineer or an architect, but I will show you these images of what's going on at 333 so you can kind of get an idea of some of the work that we're doing there. Can I do that now or?
You should be able to.
Oh, it's down at the bottom, right?
Yeah.
Oh, share screen. Okay. All right. Let me know if you folks can see it. Can we see the screen?
Yep.
The participant faces aren't showing there, are they? On my right-hand side?
No.
Okay, good. Okay, good. So in the first photo here, folks, what you see here, and again, this is just a few selection photos. I didn't have all the photos show. In the red area here, we're doing some waterproofing over some existing steel. And what you see above here, let me move my mouse here. This is the waterproofing that we're doing on one side of the building. Up here we have the rebar, which is part of the parapet system for the building. So we're going to build some stone here. Once we fill in this rebar, there's be coping stones that will be installed. This is the west side of the building. I do have the location here. Now this building is a landmark building. I believe 165 is also a landmark building. All the repairs that we have to do throughout this building, they have to be approved by SHPO, which is the State Historic Preservation Office. I believe LPC would fall under SHPO, State Historic Preservation Office. So all the brick color in this building, all the bricks that we put in this building have to pretty much perfectly match the existing brick that exists on the building now. So it's quite a, I guess you could say, tedious process to go through each side, not just the west side of the building, but all sides of the building where we're having brick in place. Let me just go to the next photo here. Can I do the next photo? Let me just go back here. Okay, so on photo 2, this is a corner repair. This isn't just one corner. We're doing this on multiple corners in the building. As you can see here, we've already installed the bricks on this side. We're working up here still as well. So the blurred area that you see right here, this is the old brick that currently exists now. And then this line here is where we're tying in the old brick to the new brick that we're installing at the building. Once we finish doing all this brick here as well, what we're going to be doing is that the building will be power washed and cleaned around here, along with the brick and mortar in the later stages. This happen when we're working on breaking down the scaffolding, so it looks more cleaner. Let me just go to photo 3 here. Photo 3 is bulkhead work. Doing bulkhead work on the west elevation at the rooftop. So right here, this steel that you see here is the parapet that we are working on. This parapet has to be about 3.5 feet high, and the rooftop is actually behind this parapet wall that you see here. The blue areas on the picture is all the waterproofing, and all these areas need to be dry and settled in before. And then we have inspections for each of these sections as we move through the building. Before we tear down any of the scaffolding, there needs to be a full building exterior inspection, and that's where we have that time frame where the inspectors make any observations on any issues that maybe we need resolving or cleaning up. And we'll go ahead and fix those issues and request an additional inspection. For photo 4 here, this is a limestone band here. And these are on top of some windows. You can't see the windows now. Their scaffolding flooring is in the way. So the steel up here is the steel covered area over the brick. All of this also has to match with SHPO. So the entire building needs to comply with SHPO requirements. I believe, again, SHPO is LPC. Again, limestone band, this is a section of that area that has been already in place. Up here, there's still more work to see, but it's not out of the range of the photo. This is limestone band and bricked over section. Midway up here, you can see replaced brick. These areas are the new brick. This is some of the old brick here that we were able to tie in. Here's the caulk line, which what we call an expansion joint. Allows expansion and contraction due to changes in weather. But as you can see here, folks, I mean, we're tying in a lot of old brick to new brick, and it has to look exactly similar to that brick. So it's sort of, I guess you could say, like a puzzle on each side of the building. So let me just show you my face again. 1 second. Yep. Okay. Hello. So yes, I just wanted to share some of those photos of TH333. Unfortunately, I don't have any ones right now of 165. If we want to open it up for questions now, Courtney and Blanche. Sorry, that was a little long-winded. Hopefully it didn't take up too much time.
So it's all good. So here's what we'll do now is we'll open it up for community board YL committee members, and then we'll go to community board member questions, and then we'll move on to public questions. So I see Mark Diller has his hand up.
After Mark is finished, I'd like to ask a couple of questions.
Sure. Okay, so we'll do Mark and then we'll do Blanche.
Okay, obviously there are tons of things to talk about here. I'm not going to occupy the field with all of them. I want to cut to what it is that perhaps the community board can be helpful with. One is making sure that the look aheads are shared and that the construction update meetings include the appropriate people. I'm not going to opine right now exactly who that is. I think there's a place for parents in those meetings, and I've been that guy. So I think that the right parent can add value in that context. I do have some sympathy for our friends at SCA because we do ask them to work on what would be for construction odd hours. Most of the time, the complaints we get at Community Board 7 are about people who get after hours variances to either work before 7 o'clock in the morning or after 6 o'clock at night. And I'll spare you the horror stories, but this is an imposition on the community in order to preserve the instructional time. How can the community board add value to here? I have a couple of thoughts. One is having a community board representative at those construction update meetings, and they obviously need to be more than monthly, is my view. And then making sure that parents are involved in some way. I don't know that multiple parents add value, but a parent from each school should be involved. One of the things that jumped right out at me from something that Josh said was the waiting for inspections. And I will refrain from sharing my experiences with the Department of Buildings, and Ira's on this call, and I bet you he has stories to tell as well. But you can, of the years and years that we've been waiting for 165 to be finished, I would wager that half of them have been waiting for inspections. Because the one thing you don't ever want to do, Josh just showed you some helpful stuff about how you open up walls in order to do waterproofing and so forth. And then what you never want to do is close up the wall, find out that there was a problem, have to open it up again, and then blah, blah, blah. But you can also have your kid graduate from high school and college before DOB shows up to do their their inspections. So one way I would propose that one of the reasons why I think CB7 should be involved in these meetings is not that I or any of us are engineers or architects, apology again to Ira who is, but because we can push with both hands, both the council member and the incoming council member who knows these issues better than I do, and the SCA to in turn push DOB to get those darned inspections done. That's the rate limiting step that I really hear here, and I would like us to be involved in. Yeah, Josh is correct. This is both of these are complicated. By the way, LPC and SHPO are different things. I'm not sure if you're subject to regulation by both. I absolutely know that you're subject to LPC. No, Ira, not okay. I'll leave that to Ira. But it's but that's why you hire who you hire, and that's why we have SCA to oversee it. So it's a complicated job, but it needs to be done and done right. Okay, that's enough from me. I'm sorry to take up so much time, but those are the ways in which I think that CP7 can be useful. We have the advantage of having an incoming council member who is as expert as the outgoing council member is, and we're grateful for the outgoing council members' perseverance on this as well. But clearly this is something that, I have a lot of sympathy for the amount of time that what we do. Oh, there is one more thing. I'm sorry. There's one more thing. DOT doesn't care about any of this. So DOT will open up the street. The number of times in which I've observed the Department of Transportation will resurface an entire street all the way down to the bedrock, and then about a week later, open it back up again so that Con Ed can do something. There is terrible coordination there. And so another thing that we can try to do is try to, and there's something in that CB7 has recently reinstituted. It's called the District Service Cabinet. And the district manager is the chief of that. And we have a new district manager. She's reinstated it. And that's where we bring all the uniformed services and all of the city agencies that touch our neighborhood. And that's where we try, we can only try, but where we can try to say to DOT, in effect, we need you to liaise with your people at Con Ed, because it's almost always Con Ed. Sometimes it's Spectrum or those guys, but it's almost always Con Ed. In effect, we need them to give you a look ahead, and then we can share that with SCA so that we can have some rational way of planning. That's the best I can offer in terms of what CB7 can do from my experience, other than trying to hold the community at bay, because nobody wants that kind of noise at 11 o'clock at night. Anyway, I hope that's useful. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Could I just comment
Yeah,
on one
go
quick
ahead.
thing?
Yep.
Oh, okay. So we don't get the inspections from DOB. We have our own in-house inspectors, BCC, Building Code Compliance at the SCA. They're pretty quick. When I say waiting on inspections, we send in inspection requests and we could probably have them come out there pretty quick. So we're not going to the DOB for the inspections. We have our own internal inspectors. So once we put them out there, that's something our PO can follow up on to try to get the earliest date. I don't think it takes very long at all. We've heard a lot of good things from our BCC folks, but I did come from DOB and I understand those concerns about inspection. They do take rather long to get. Also, you, Mark, if you would like to send me those DSC meeting, or I'm not sure if it's you would send it, or probably the district manager, I think would send them over to me. I'd be happy to join those.
That's great. Okay. All right, Blanche, and then next up is Kristen.
I'll be very brief because Mark has covered a good bit of what I wanted to suggest, and that is a role for CB7, which we have played in a number of instances when there has been private development in the community board area. So Mark has covered that. I'm going back a little bit further to something Josh said, and that is that the School Construction Authority has a lot more restraints placed on them than does private development, and in terms of particularly hours that can be worked or not. And I find that bothersome. Having said that, I don't know what the solution is, but I think we might all agree that no private development would take 10 years, whereas something like repair, as it were, on schools can last for 10 years with impunity on somebody's part. I also wonder about contractual arrangements. The School Construction Authority doesn't do the work itself. It obviously contracts out. And in those contracts, I can only hope that there is some leverage that if timelines that are pre-agreed to are not met by the contractor, that there is some financial burden placed on them. But 10 years is an absolutely absurd time under any circumstances. So I will leave it at that, but I think those are things that maybe internally, once we discuss this, we meaning CB7, we can allude to some of those things. Thank you.
Okay, Kristen was next up with the hand, and then Ira's after, Kristen.
Terrific. Yeah, just building on what Mark said about ways CB7 can lift this and bring it forward. The other resource you do have, just to refer to my old hat, is the Community Education Council, because every one of those schools has a CEC liaison, and often they're a part of this process. I mentioned in the chat, I attended the school safety meetings at 165 as the Mod Hall 2 rep for 2 years, when they still thought the roof was going to be a repair. So those meetings are monthly. I know Mark said they could be more frequent, but monthly is actually pretty frequent. It's a terrific way to share the look aheads, but it also has to be more meaningful. Like Lynn pointed out something terrific at the beginning of the meeting, which is something SCA could build on. And she said a priority for families is the outdoor yards, right? So that's the kind of feedback that SCA can get at those meetings and say, this is where we're going to try to focus our efforts and get open up first. And we understand that there's a world of construction going on, but it has to be a two-way street where they're not just briefing parents on what's going on, but also able to take the information from parents and do something with it.
Great. And I also want to mention, and you probably can see in the chat, that we actually do have some of our CC3 folks here. So Jeannie Ann is here. She's the liaison for PS 165. So we do have a few of them joining us, and I think that's a great point and suggestion for working with them as we go forward. Ira is next up on the list.
Please bear with me while I'm a little too wordy. I am an architect. I've worked on public schools in the city. I've worked on commercial new construction. I've done it on the private side. I've done it on the public side. I've done it with SCA as the procuring agency. I've done it with DGS now as the procuring agency. So I've got a fair depth of experience here. Just a couple of things. Clearing up some of the things that Josh and Mark said. In the infinite wisdom of the New York State legislature, when the SCA was created, they gave jurisdiction over the historic aspects of the school to SHPO. They thought this was going to be more expeditious than LPC. They were incorrect. On top of which, they then gave jurisdiction of all schools to SHPO, and SHPO reviews all schools for their historic significance, often finding none, but sometimes finding some, and being quite more bound by the Department of Interior guidelines than the LPC is. So this does create some complications, but that's in the wisdom of our legislators. In regards to inspections, I have a question for Josh because I don't quite know the current status of this discussion. And you can please answer, if you can answer it after I'm done. These are what are called all-to alterations. So DOB has a very, very minor role in this. And my experience is you have construction inspectors who come regularly as SCA. Do you also have the ability to do your own special inspections, or are those done by a independent special inspection agency?
I believe it's my understanding BCC does all the inspections for school projects.
Okay, so you don't have, because for example, a private job or a New York City agency, remember SCA is a state authority, actually have to retain independent architects and engineers to inspect the work on an ongoing basis. And since they get paid rather magnificently, they come and they're concerned about their liability and their license and whatnot. And that's something that happens in both the public sector and the New York City government buildings. But remember, SCA is not bound by DOB permitting, for example. They do their own permitting. They do their own sign-offs. The only thing is that they go to DOB for are COs and whatnot. So let me just talk a little bit here about my own experience. And I know a little bit about the two schools in question, some of which I shouldn't get into, some of which I should. I have some experience with the general contractor on 333. And the specific experience was we did a school that's about, let's say, early part of this century. And it was a program, and I'll talk about the program in a second, which was not an SCA program, this was the DDC program. where we only did work in the schools during the summer, and that was the limit of the work. So one school that we were doing with the contractor from 333 was supposed to be a 2-summer project. They staffed that project so that the 2-summer project was done in 1 summer. And to go into the details of that program, we actually did not, the DDC did not put the schools out to bid. They had, I won't go through the procurement method in great detail. I don't want to bore you too much. But we did expect, I was working on the architect side at the time. We did extensive probes early on in the project, every project. We brought in a construction manager, the DDC brought in a construction manager that procured all the materials. This addressed one of the problems that we've had on a lot of other projects, where the general contractors usually don't have deep enough pockets or the ability to plan to procure materials. So we were able to buy multiple schools, procure the brick, procure the windows, the roofing material, whatever it was we needed, 6 months before the contractor ever appeared on the job. These are things that I don't think SCA, I don't know if they have the statutory ability to do it, but this thing we did. One of the other things we did, which probably made us, under the DDC program, decidedly unpopular with the neighbors, but somewhat popular in the fact that our construction season was 3 months, month and a half, 2 weeks of mobilization in June, two weeks of demobilization in September. Is we did those 2 months in the middle 24/7. And this actually helped a lot, because a lot of the exterior wall work, particularly during the day, is actually mean, nasty, miserable work. There's no other way to put it. It's really, really miserable. And I would be on some of the jobs during the day, and I got to tell you, I was drinking a quart of water an hour. So it made us decidedly unpopular, but it got the job done. One of the other things we did, which also is probably not within SCA's certainly standard policies, is we also understood a lot of the contractors, even what you might consider well-sized contractors, simply can't run a job on a 1 or 2 or 3 month payment cycle. It just doesn't work. I think I know there are a couple of people who can hear me on this. Bev and Cindy probably know these issues. The contractors put in an invoice, they got paid in 2 weeks. Okay, so they could keep moving forward. They didn't stop. Now, in regards to defaults in public work, because I do spend time on the public side. In defense of SCA, defaults for public work contractors are quite painful for public agencies. And but on the private side, I've got to tell you, default, if somebody doesn't perform, and even when there's a bonding company, everybody know what a bonding company is? It's an insurance policy, says you're going to perform the work, or else the bonding company comes in and performs the work. Those happen really, really quickly. Those don't happen really, really quickly in public work. And it can take years to default a contract. And I know some of these projects have happened over multiple years with multiple contractors. So these are things that SCA has had to suffer through. But, you know, I mean, when I hear things like some of the stories I hear on 333, and I assume it's the same story on 165, because I'm one of the usual suspects at the CEC meetings, going back 10 or 11 years. Ouch. The probes are really, really unpopular, but they're really, really essential. So if you've got, I'm looking forward into the future. If we have another one of these schools, let the probes happen. Just let the probes happen. You know, there are multiple sets of meetings that are held on a decent sized construction site. As an architect, I historically have not attended all of them. Some of them you don't want to be at. They're tedious, they're uninformative, and if you think subway schedules are subject to change without notice, construction schedules even more so. I'm not going to pretend to preach to SCA. I've done too much work with them. I had the opportunity to go back into that a few years ago. I decided not to. So you can hear that. But everybody there does. I think everybody there is sincere, and I don't think anybody should doubt their sincerity. You know, I stood up at a CEC meeting where somebody talked about a new school construction schedule. And at that point, I said, Mark might have been there. I said, in 20 years of working with the SCA, they've never missed an opening date for a new school. And I think that may still be true.
Can I
I'm going to finish up.
Yeah.
I'm going to finish up. However, they're not so good on the renovations, as we know. And that's a problem. And by the way, it is inconceivable to me, I'll leave you with this. It's inconceivable to me that they can't get the scaffold down in anything more than 2 weeks, because I've done 15-story buildings, new construction, fully scaffolded, and those scaffolds come down in a week. So anyway, I'll leave you with that. But they need to rethink their approach, and we did a lot of schools. We did each. I'll just leave you with one thing. That program that I referred to ran for 5 years. There were 4 architects, 4 CMs. We were paired together. Each group did 10 schools a year. So that program did a couple hundred schools in its lifespan. And I think there have to be some lessons learned from that SCA really ought to revisit. And if their enabling legislation doesn't let them do that, they need to sit down with the people who who can change the legislation. Because if the New York City DDC could do it, SCA should be able to do it. Everybody's working with the same unions, same suppliers, same contractors. So I'll leave it with that.
So, Josh, I have a few questions, and then we'll go to Guy. Josh, anything in there that Ira was mentioning, is any of that, of kind of his experiences, anything that we can apply either to the current projects or looking ahead, things that we should be advocating for ahead of new projects? Because again, I don't think that this is going to be the last time we have this issue in our district and our city. And so kind of a twofold question: anything that he mentioned or any areas you see where we can expedite the current timelines? Are there areas where our advocacy could help? And then secondarily, are there places where we can be advocates for ensuring that, understanding that some of these things come up from a construction thing that are a little bit unknowable? Are there ways that you see that we could be helpful to advocate that would expedite timelines going forward on new projects so that we don't get to where we are today?
So I think, as Ira mentioned, sure, building new schools is, I would say, a lot faster than a renovation project. I mean, a lot of our schools,
You're claiming that you're not representing me anymore. I don't
a
know
lot of
that.
our schools are very old schools. So a lot of this renovation that we're doing requires a steady hand. I mean, as for expediting the work, we have to ensure that all our work is performed adequately and safely. I mean, we can't really, there is no, I would say, expediting process when it comes to construction work, especially as it comes to specifically for schools and the occupants of the schools. As far as advocacy goes, I think there's a lot the community board could help us with. You know, I particularly this project. You know, we've been working with some outside agencies, but for a lot of schools, some of the big complaints we get are what's going on to the scaffolding. How can NYPD help? What can DHS or DSS do to assist? And since I've been working at the SCA, I've been having a very difficult time trying to get the NYPD to respond to any of my emails. I have coordinated with some of the elected officials' office to try to get them to respond, and it seems they're running into roadblocks too. And you know, we get complaints of illegal activity happening under the sidewalk sheds, complaints of syringes, complaints of drug use, and these are issues that we want to resolve. We don't want to have them occurring under the sidewalk shed. Of course, unfortunately, I think this is a concern that happens not just in public projects, but private projects as well, just around every part of the city. But it would be very helpful to have the community board's advocacy when we're trying to coordinate with MIPD. Goddard is very, very helpful. They're super responsive. DSS is responsive too, but the MIPD is the hardest point. And we've contacted the NCOs. I've tried to refer some community groups to the community precinct council meetings, and they say they don't get responses either. So that's the part I think, not just with 323 but 165 as well, that we could probably get a lot of assistance on from the community board. I think that's why I've gone to the district service council meetings too, to try to talk to the MIPD on these issues as well. But again, you know, they just don't seem to be responding to my emails when I include them. So if that is something that CB could help me on, that would be great. That'd be very useful.
I think that makes Mark's suggestion about the district service cabinet look very helpful and smart.
Right. I attend CB3s because we had an issue at PS1, and when NYPD coordinated with Goddard, well, they weren't working together, but when they were all in the one room and we were resolving the issue, we greatly reduced the homeless problem at PS1. I know that's not here, but it could help here when we have those complaints. So.
Brittany, could I just jump in real quickly on that one point very briefly? The one way so that's exactly one of the ways in which CB7 can hopefully be helpful if CEC3 were to echo it even more so. But one thought that we might want to consider is, rather than trying to get uniformed officers from the 2-4 precinct in both of these locations at once, is to try to get our friends at SCA to in turn influence their friends at the Department of Education to get school crossing guards or school safety officers, additional officers assigned to that space. No one thinks that the NYPD can have a uniformed officer 24/7 at these locations. But during the school day, having an extra school safety officer effectively patrolling these areas might be the presence on the block that we're all looking for. I'll shut up now.
Great. Okay, thanks. Now let's go to Guy, and then I don't see any other hands from board members, so we'll go to Guy and then we'll open up for public questions and comments.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I don't doubt Josh's sincerity here. But in all due respect, it's, the time duration is we just don't trust that within the 9 months. We haven't seen a plan for the next 9 months. Like a 2-week look ahead is something, but we don't know what goes into the next 9 months. Like isn't there an outline, perhaps with a phased approach, maybe, Lynn had raised this question of, is a phased approach smart? To me, it seems like a simple win, because the yard, which we showed pictures of, is where the kids are only able to, and the teachers in the school, they're only able to use like 40% of it right now. So isn't there maybe a chart within the map of the next 9 months and what it looks like that has, is colored, that is maybe in green, yellow, and red, and you go for green being completed by April, and and the green being the yard, right? Which I think you're going to have a party in that yard if you're able to complete that. and you finish that by April. Nobody's mentioned snow here. We haven't had any snow. I see in Ira in your background, but what effect that might have, that could come. But that aside, so it's to bring back this, and it was the first question I think that Lynn had raised. Is there, and we had raised this, Josh, when we sat down, is there going to be perhaps, or is that part of the plan? A phased approach. If not, can that be? Finish the yard, do that. I think it's southern facing piece. We will have a party in the yard if that's complete by April. We're still gonna, we still think that the September 22 date, we don't understand it. We haven't seen the plan. So there is a question in there about the phased approach. Which I'll pause. I don't know if there's an answer to that, or if others have, a similar concern. I have another thing, Courtney, so if possible to come back, I'll pause there.
Go ahead, Josh.
So I meant to send this in an email to Lynn as well. As far as like the overall schedule, I think what what we're doing right now is what I was showing in the photos earlier about the exterior facade, corner rebuilding. We're still doing selective brick placement around the school, pointing, and we're going to be conducting all of that through the winter. As far as the roof work goes, the roof work isn't expected to begin until the spring. And once we complete that roof work, we're going to go through punch list items, but we're expected to be completed with the roof work by September of 2022 or before, so we can do our inspections requests. As far as the phasing of the project in terms of the schoolyard, I did bring this concern up. Now, it's my understanding that we cannot phase it because we had the facade and rooftop work, and both we need to have half the height for fall protection for safety reasons. Now, the staging area takes up that half the height as well of that fall protection. So we have that staging area in place also. It was mentioned that if we can reduce the staging area once we complete facade work or roof work, we will try to do that. But as far as right now, I can't give you a concrete yes on that. We're going to be reducing that staging area. So try to keep you as updated as I can during our process. I know that's not the answer that anybody wants right now, but that's the current state of the project at 333.
And can I ask? So
yeah,
then,
and then Rodney, I see your hand up, so we'll go to Rodney next.
So then, what I heard is that as of April, the remaining work, other than the punch list items, the facade work will be done. It would then pivot to the roof work as of April. And we're not sure as of now if the scaffolding, if the yard, the staging area plus the scaffolding on that side could come down.
We can't remove it while we're doing, we can't remove it while we're still doing roof work. Any type of work on the roof or facade requires us to have those safety measures in place.
So got it. So, but the staging area that for materials required, I assume those materials are required for all of the work, but it's possible that April 1, that could all be shipped out somewhere else and the yard could be given back to the school.
It's my understanding that staging area is within the fall protection zone for the project. So that staging area is only in place for workers, for safety reasons. Hopefully, as mentioned, I bring it up later on in the project if it's something we can reduce, but that's going to be dependent on the speed of the roof work once it's completed.
My second question, just a quick one about the workers, because I literally pick my son up every day and I count how many, and I think my eyes are still okay. And I actually take video of it just to, document it. But wouldn't, and I'm not, this isn't my line of work, but wouldn't the bills, wouldn't the construction, the number of people who've been paid for work be documented? Like if there are 60, 70 workers working, that would be something easily that we could be pulled up, right? And I think you said you were going to circle back on that, Josh. Because we actually have had people count like in the last couple of months. I think I mentioned this at the meeting. And as Lynn said, we've never seen more than.
Yeah, I mentioned, I think I told everyone on here that I would stop by. I'll try to stop by there next week and just take a look, follow up with the GC when I'm there about the number of workers. So I'll try to go next week, sometime in the afternoon when they're there. I think after 3:30 they arrive, or at 3:30 they arrive, but 4:30 is probably best, just to ensure that everyone's on site at that moment.
Rodney.
Yes, thank you. Hi, Josh. So I sent you some things in the chat. Just our questions. Like, we've been told we can only have because of the slanted roof, 3 workers at a time up on the roof working, and that's part of the delay. Can we get more workers on there? I don't know if, it's a pretty big roof. I don't know where that's at, but that seems like there might be some wiggle room somewhere around there for whatever the constraint is. That's a big thing that we feel that might be able to expedite the project. and really, like our thing is like getting this done before school starts, August 2022. And that's it. This is like the thing I want to champion, the sword I'm going to die on, and whoever's life we need to make, difficult. And I get everything. Appreciate the insight from, particularly from Mark and Ira. What they have to say is astounding. Sounds like there's a lot of work and bureaucracy that is just, it puts a lot of shame to the SCA, and there's a lot of undue stress that they have to deal with. But as is the thing, whenever people start complaining, that's usually when things get done, unfortunately, right? So that's where we're at here. So yeah, that August 2022 is a big deal for us. And from the teacher side, because I always like to advocate for our schools, this is like, the staging area. It's taking up their parking, and parking's a big deal for them. They have to pay for parking. I don't know what can be done there. I'm totally advocating for them in this part. The staging areas is their parking right now, and it's deemed to be empty most of the time. And I have to drop off soon, but I appreciate everything, and so thank you for all of you, for your dedication. It's a really big deal. I know a lot of us have been stressed, but at the end of the day, we're talking about our kids here, and whatever we can do to make their lives a little bit better. That I don't want to lose sight of that. We're talking construction projects. We always got to remember who the end user is here, right?
Right.
And I don't want that to ever get lost. So thank you, and please, that's our thing, Josh. I sent it to you in the chat. I'll email it to you again. So that's it. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Rodney, thank you so much for joining us.
Rodney.
I know you've had a busy night. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Okay.
Take care.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Great. Robert has his hand up, and then Blanche, if you have other questions, I want to make sure we circle back to you, and then we'll go to the public for any questions. Robert. Robert.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, Courtney. And I appreciate your report there, Joshua. Can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you loud and clear.
Are you okay? Can you hear?
Yes.
I can hear you perfectly.
Okay, good. Okay, so that I appreciate your. Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate your report. I had really wanted to hear on my comment from Ira, and it's banking off an observation that Mark made. And a property that we were getting ready for me to manage, it was a new building. We ran into unforeseen circumstances. You said one of the causes of the delays would be unforeseen circumstances. The term we use is work orders. And that the work order is any change in the construction, design, whatever it is. And we ran into one which is rather critical. We ran into an underground river. So those are the kind of unforeseen circumstances that can delay a project a year or so. And if the principal, if the client, in this case, the community that is bringing the Courtney and company, the community board and other teachers and so on, can keep an eye on these work orders, these change orders. It's a good way of monitoring the likelihood that that August target will be reached. And so I wanted to hear from Ira and his experience on work order and change orders and how they might apply to this kind of project. The item that Mark referred to was open a wall and suddenly you encounter a situation and that was unforeseen. Now, a work order and change order can make a 2 months difference. Not only that, the administrative process of a work order can take several weeks, and take 5-6 weeks to get that work order approved. So I really wanted, if Ira had any thoughts, because he would have, if anyone would have ample experience in this, it would be him. Ira, can you hear? Is he still on?
Well, yeah. This is why I'm fond of doing probes.
Oh, I'm not hearing you, Ira. Right.
I can. He's speaking, Robert.
Yeah, this is why I'm fond of doing investigative probes, as disruptive as they are, when when there's no apparent progress on the construction, and there might not be for a year or two. But you get all the information up front. It's like doing exploratory surgery. We don't do a double heart lung transplant without doing some investigative work. The problem with one of the problems with change orders is you have a phenomenal inability to negotiate them, either in terms of time or cost, and every agency has their own process to manage them. Yes, there probably is a contingency that's there. Is the contingency big enough? Usually you hope so. But the problem too is just the process. You find a condition, you call up the architect, you call up the engineer, they have to come out to the site, they look at the condition, then they say, this is what needs to be done. The contractor comes back with a price. Whoops, we're already down a month. Plus, they may not, depending on the specifics of the agency, you may or may not be able to proceed. One of the reasons why we also sometimes do work with what's called unit costs on it. So if you all of a sudden find out you need 100 new brick, it's there already, you just run. But it's often a time killer just in terms of getting everybody out there to evaluate the new information. And of course, it only happens on Friday afternoons before 3-day weekends.
Well, yeah, Ira. Right. That's terrific, Ira. Yeah, and that's the point, because there's two things. And Joshua, you know what I'd like to see for the committee to have is the log of change orders on this particular, well, I'm near 93rd Street, so whichever one. The log of change orders, because Ira, you have to keep a log of every single change order.
Well, you
And
actually,
and that's a good predictor of what might be coming up in the next between now and August.
well, there's usually a
Go, Ira.
predecessor.
Go ahead.
Well, hang on. I think that goes to the question that was raised earlier, which is but not just the 2-week look ahead, but the availability of a longer timeframe look ahead. And I don't know, Josh, if that's something that's A, possible, and B, shareable. So I think that, Robert, that sounds to me like kind of where this question is going with the insight into the change orders. Josh, do you have is the longer time frame kind of play-by-play available?
Let me take it back and follow up also on that too. That's something I'm relatively still new to the agency, but I'll confirm.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll add Could I just, two comments? One is, there's usually a predecessor to a change order called an RFI.
Yeah, it's a good way,
request
it's
for
a good way for the
information.
committee to, yeah.
What I was going to say was, in terms of when you put in your invoice, starting from the beginning of a project, you have, whether it's a private project or a public project, the contractor usually gives a schedule because it's contractually required, and two, because the owner, whether it's public or private, needs to do a cash flow projection. So SCA needs to know how much money they need when to pay the contractor. Or if I'm putting together my kitchen, I need to know how much I need. So there's that schedule. Usually if that gets stretched out, the owner is not terribly upset because they get to keep the money longer. But at least they know that they need it ready. So that's always in the back pocket.
Okay. Blanche, want to make sure we go back to you. Do you have any questions?
No, I don't. I don't. I just thinking ahead as to what CB7 might structure to have ongoing dialogue about these issues rather than get bogged down here as to really very specific things.
Right.
So if we could keep that in mind, and for future, we can't solve that tonight, but we put it as an item for moving forward when we hope to have a CB7 structure in place to look forward to. I'm getting something from Mark. I think, Mark, are you leaving?
Yeah, unfortunately, I have a meeting that starts at 8:30 that I couldn't move. That was scheduled ahead of this.
Okay. No, I kept getting something in the chat, so I just wanted us to be aware of that.
I apologize. Courtney is now the host of your meeting, so the meeting can continue. And I'm at the disposal of the co-chairs for any help I can give you with respect to setting up the district service cabinet approach or anything else that you guys need. Thanks
Okay,
very much.
fine. Thank you. And
I
Courtney,
wanted to say a quick thank you to Cindy on behalf of Councilmember Rosenthal, who's always been there for us on these matters.
Yeah.
okay,
I'll let her
Courtney,
know.
Courtney, we're moving to public comments. Is that okay?
That's
fine.
correct. So for our members of the public who are in our attendees, if you have a question or a comment, you can raise your hand now and I'll promote you to speak. And additionally, I'm going to go back in case and look at our chat, because I know that some questions went into the chat or comments went into the chat, and I'll read those into the record once we get there. So Jamie, I'm going to promote you, if that's okay, to panelists so you can speak. I see your hand up. Stand by. All right, Jamie, you should be able to speak now.
Hi, I'm a parent at PS 165. My child's now in 4th grade. We've been there since he was in kindergarten, and this construction's been ongoing. And what I'd like to know is, because I live on the block and I've noticed that COVID aside, we know everything screeched to a halt with COVID, but in normal times, the summers and the vacations never seem to be used effectively. And I wonder if there is a way that the SCA could use those blocks of time more effectively. Because I hear them when they're working on the roof. I know that there's some more silent work that I wouldn't be aware of, but I've even spoken to the super of my building, who actually goes on our roof every day just to check things out. And I've, asked him on quite a few occasions, are they doing any work on this school? Because you can see it very clearly from where we are. And he says, once in a while, I'll see them up there tinkering a little, but there's not a lot of action going on. So I feel like that's one moving piece that could help expedite, if it's possible to somehow coordinate that with scheduling. Also, I don't know how these things work, but I'd also like to know if it is possible in the summers to hire more workers, to just get more manpower up there, woman power, whatever would help facilitate the movement in our school. And I would say the same for PS 333. I mean, like, I think that there might be some solutions that can help us get closer to reaching deadlines. And I understand with construction, there's always unforeseen things that pop up. But I feel like if we're using the downtime more effectively, that if we're already like really getting close to meeting our goal and we're set back a little, it's a minor snafu that will delay things a little bit, like a month or 2 or 3 or 4, but not 5 years. You know, I mean, I think that there's ways that we could go about it to make it more efficient.
Sure, Jamie. I am going to follow up regarding those holiday and summer hours. I know we do work during the day during these hours, but I am not sure off the top of my head if it's 16-hour days or not, but I can confirm that for you. I did want to bring up something in regards to PS 333. I forgot to bring up earlier. I think it was last summer. That's when they had increased the manpower at that school. It was over the summer that they were able to, I think, reduce the timeline of the completion by 2 months. 165 might be a different case since we're not dealing with a flat roof there. We're dealing with this very heavily sloped roof. But I think I may have mentioned to someone else who brought that up that I'm going to follow. It was Rodney. I'm going to follow up about if additional workers can go up there. So I'll confirm that as well for 165. I wrote it in my notes here.
Can I ask a question? Because actually I'd written that down too, and it reminded me that I hadn't asked it about the ability to scale up in terms of workers in those times when the school is down. And it sounds like you're going to look into that, which is great. I think as we look forward to what else can we be advocating for, it sounds like that's something that we could be advocating for the planning of if it wasn't already in the plan to do the scaling up during holidays. Are you aware of when these things launch, whether they have that kind of scale up workforce plan in place when these school construction projects launch out of the gate?
At the beginning, no, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. Again, they increased it at 333. Now, I don't have off the top of my hand right now why they increased it. I think it was just it was unoccupied, so they could have more workers in the space versus 165, which is heavily sloped roof. We were talking like, so it's an old building also. I'm not sure what kind of weight bearing activities can happen up there in terms of putting up more material on the rooftop. I think there was questions about maybe storing material on the scaffold as well. I think we can put some material on there, but not a lot. Of the scaffold has weight bearing properties as well.
Joshua,
I'll follow up with it.
From your records, what as of now, what's the latest in terms of when you're supposed to be done at 165?
August 2022 for substantial, full completion fall of 2022. Full completion meaning all scaffolds and sidewalk shed and netting gone.
Okay. Thank you.
Right.
I'm looking, I don't see any of their hands raised from members of the public. I do want to read into the record a comment from someone who doesn't look like she's on anymore. Who said she wanted to point out issues regarding accessibility, along with many other children at 333. My son uses a wheelchair and other mobility aids. The scaffolding construction work significantly impairs his ability to exit and enter the school safely and with ease. We have accepted and adapted, having known no different for the past 4 years, but it's not okay. School should be as safe and accessible for children of all abilities. Josh, can you talk a little bit, knowing especially that this particular school has a lot of children attending with these types of issues? What can you tell us a little bit? Are there things that are done, and is there more that can be done to facilitate kind of the accessibility issues at the school while these construction projects are still going on.
I don't think there's anything in the project that includes any accessibility changes to the school. My understanding that sidewalk sheds are given enough width to allow for those with accessibility concerns issues to get through. Is it just the sidewalk shed, or is it issues with the school stairway? What's,
I don't know, but I'll reach out to PS. Actually, we can maybe our PS 333 folks can reach out, because I don't know. Jasmine doesn't look like she's on anymore, and so maybe we can circle back and get more information about some of the challenges there.
Right. I mean, sidewalk sheds are going to take up some portion of the sidewalk, but there's a requirement in the code that includes enough width and space for those with wheelchairs to get through, even with passersby coming the opposite direction. I'm not sure if it's really with the stairwell. I went to 333. I can't recall if there's a ramp there. I think there may be, but if you want to send that over to me.
Yeah, why don't we, my PS 333 folks, I'll talk to you and we can maybe get together some information on that.
Right now, yeah, if that's something that, if there isn't a ramp, I did go there, but I really can't recall if there's a ramp there. Guy, maybe you remember.
There's a ramp in the back to the schoolyard. There's not a ramp at the front.
Okay.
But at any dismissal or drop off, you can see, I think, what this parent is talking about.
It gets tight.
Yeah, I think the issue is there is enough space to make it, it doesn't violate code, but just the practicality is there's not enough space, especially when there's, 20 kids that need to go through this very narrow area. So yes, they can fit one at a time, but at drop-offs, it's them trying to fit, and then it's parents trying to go down there as well. So there's,
yeah,
I don't think
it could be something that the school specifically could try to address as well, when that drop off is happening, if it's a common theme every morning. As far as if it's just accessibility for the school in general, the CEC can also just follow up with us. I think by January 14th, CEC can submit their capital plan and any capital plan amendments. If that's a priority specifically for this school, that they want additional accessibility changes to the school, they can put that in.
I don't think the issue is that the accessibility of the school otherwise is a problem. I think the problem
It's the project specifically in the sidewalk shed.
Yeah,
I know.
exactly.
It's my understanding, right? In that instance, it's something that's happening every morning. It may be something that the school would have to try to coordinate with, and I understand that the construction it's making it a little bit more difficult. We can't move the shed as is, but hopefully we can get out there as soon as possible. And unfortunately, as soon as possible is not soon enough. Let's send it over anyway, and we'll see if there's something else somewhere we can try to make some changes.
Robert, I see you have your hands up. Let's have one more quick question, and then I don't see any other further hands. So we'll let our guests leave if they would like at that point. It's getting late, and we'll discuss. But Robert, one quick last. Go ahead, Robert.
Well, yeah. Well, it's just a very naive one, and that is that is it possible that a Department of Education project, which all of these would have to be, I imagine, could be out of compliance with any ADA requirements, with respect to what Courtney brought up with access, wheelchair access, and whatever they would. Is it possible that one of these sites could have an impeded access for people with wheelchairs?
That would probably only occur in. I can double check on you, but if it was an impeded access, it would have to be. My understanding would have to be something that is physically blocking it all the time versus people in the way. So that's my understanding of it, but I can clarify.
No, people, yeah, but children go to school. Okay, but you get my drift, and that's the question. Thank you, Courtney. But you get my point.
Right. It would be something like an egress issue. If someone's standing in the way of an egress point.
It would be a violation of federal law. Okay, thanks, Courtney.
Thanks, Robert. Ira. Oop. You're muted.
Okay.
I just wanted to say that one of our budget priorities year in, year out has been funding for ADA improvements to our schools. That's one of the things that I think we've usually had in there. And I think there has been year after year, a partial commitment on the part of DOE to increase accessibility. But one of the things that comes up here that, we're looking for things that are actionable is perhaps before the bridges go up and before the scaffolding goes up and before the site logistics plan is put into place, that's something that the principal and the PTAs ought to really sign off on in the future. And that's an actionable, really simple, low impact thing, because if you do it early enough in the game, it has no impact on schedule. It has no impact on cost, for realistic impact cost, but it has great benefit to everybody because it lets everything move smoothly. That's my comment.
Thank you, Ara. Yeah, I mean, we do sit down with the school ahead of time before we even begin these projects to talk about what we're planning to do there and any issues that the school has through that process from the beginning all the way through the duration of completion. These issues are usually brought up to us ahead of time. But I agree, we want to make sure these concerns are headed off in the beginning.
Okay. All right. Well, Blanche, I think it's time to let our
Yeah,
guests.
I think so. I think all our guests, but Joshua, you didn't have a backup, and you've done a tremendous job, as have all the guests. And I would say you've given CB7 not just food for thought, but items for action. And we, as a committee, will sort of put some shape to everything that's been said here tonight and see how we can move forward with you two schools, knowing that you're not going to be the only two, and how we can include you, the school community, certainly parents, and Josh. I would say if you and your SCA comes up with anything specific that our community board or other community boards, I mean, there are school repairs going on in every borough, I am sure. Maybe if we can establish a bit of a format and an understanding as to roles, we would certainly be happy to look at it. And thank you so very, very, very much for all of you being here and the time you've spent and the thoughts you've given us. Thank you.
Thank you, Community Board 7. You guys have really taken this issue very seriously, and we really appreciate you guys lending your skills and communication and advocacy to this intractable problem. You sound great. You asked great questions, and I really appreciated the time you gave us.
Great. Thanks, everyone. YL members, stick around. Let's have a conversation about what comes next.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a nice night.
Everybody. Have a good night. Thanks, Courtney and Blanche.
Thanks.
All right. Take care, guys.
Okay. All right. So what do we want to do here? I think Mark had a lot of really great suggestions. He's not here to speak to them, but I think there was a lot of really great suggestions.
Well, we have a lot of food for thought and action.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hang on while I get another piece of paper. Since I scribbled all over all of the paper that I had gotten out. All right, Bev, yeah. Oop, you're muted.
Yeah,
There.
I did that. Okay. I agree there is immense food for thought here. I'm not sure there is food for a resolution yet. So my suggestion would be that we figure out how to become part of the process that was defined of monthly meetings around this and designate whomever we feel from the committee would be most helpful to attend. And we take it a little bit at a time until we get deeper into this, and maybe we can come up with, some suggestions to the state to revise the SCA statute, for example, or maybe we could come up with some kind of practical suggestion. But I think we're short of information to do that, although we got a great deal of information that was very, very interesting tonight.
Yeah,
I'm inclined to agree with, I do agree with Bev.
Yeah, I mean, I think we could do a simple resolution, which is that we shouldn't be buying double candles for any of these projects to celebrate their birthdays. And, that's the problem. And, one of the things is when we know, because Kristen has been part of that discussion, when SCA wants to get a project done, look, when you're spending $1 billion a year, you have certain clout within the construction industry, within the design industry to get things done. When they had to get the fit up of the interior for PS 191 done on a commercial construction schedule, they got it done. Now, to ask them to do one of these exterior renovations in a year or 2 years, that's within the realm of co-op building. But certainly they should set some self-imposed limit where they just commit as a matter of agency policy that at a certain point, they look at the calendar and they look at the budget. And if they've blown the calendar, they commit to the budget to pay the overtime, to pay the extra supervision, and to pay what it takes to get out of the school. I think that's a fair statement.
Ira, who are you referring to?
The SCA, whether the DOE makes that commitment and then agrees to fund it for the SCA, whatever it is, the two agencies come to some sort of understanding that a project takes no longer than this. An exterior modernization, even if you're getting custom tile made by dwarfs in some country that I've never heard of before, the tile still comes. Put it on a jet plane, don't put it on a ship. Whatever it takes to get things done.
Ira, the point I was trying to make early in the meeting is if the SCA or whomever else, DOE, DOB, has a contract with a contractor to do a job within a reasonable period of time, if the work has been reasonably defined, then I think there should be some responsibility financially borne by the contractor as well.
So can I just say something? So here's my problem is I feel deeply, and again, I think Ira and Kristen and Bev, I'm incredibly aware that you guys have a depth of experience on this topic that I do not have. So perhaps that underpins what I'm about to say, which is that I have a deep sense of how much of the devil being in the details on this. And so I'm inclined a little bit to both. I understand Bev's point about saying, let's become part of the process and hold our fire. I also think I can see an argument for saying it should never get to this point, and kind of throwing it back on others to say, there may be a lot of other ways that we get around this. We're not going to suggest those here, but is there a benefit to us saying it just should never get here? It should never get 7 or 10 years. And Bev, does that set us up in a way that's problematic for later, or is it okay to have something that's that kind of generalized without having the specifics of any recos or information? I'm asking, honestly, your thoughts on that.
Can you repeat?
Yeah, just, I mean,
I'm not sure.
I'm always really nervous when we have resolutions that are too prescriptive about certain things, especially on this topic where I feel like there's so many caveats and so many if and thens and so much information that we, as we said, we didn't get, we got so much tonight, but there's so much more. I'm always really cognizant that when we do that, that there's often a lot of ways in which we haven't covered off everything. We don't know everything. Is there a benefit to a unusually simple resolution that just says, however, we'll continue to be part of the process. We'd like to be part of the process. It should never get to 10 years. Do without what you may. I mean, I agree that with Ira's point that like, it shouldn't be at 10 years. That's.
Well, early on, and I think they kind of strayed from this, the SCA sort of, when they were a new agency, one of the vice presidents set forth a time schedule for how long a typical project should take, and he had a different list of projects as to how long a new building should take, how long a major modernization, and so forth and so forth. And if you submitted a schedule that didn't fit into his plan, let's put it this way, he wasn't happy, and he didn't make you, and he made sure you weren't either. I mean, if you went into a restaurant and was told it was 3 hours to get your hamburger after you sat down, you'd get up and leave.
Right.
There's a reasonable expectation of how long something should take.
Agreed. I'm just asking
what you're trying to get
benefit to us writing that resolution versus the plan of let's get in the process and then write it. Kristen has her hand up, and then Ben.
Yeah, I'll quit.
No, I don't want you to quit.
No, I'm not quitting them.
Ben hasn't spoken. Well, he has, but not to this. But my question to you, Courtney, are we talking about a resolution to whom?
I don't know. That's what I'm asking.
Well,
guys, I often have an axe to grind on these things. I actually have none right now. I'm actually asking the question to those who know more on this topic.
Bev had a point about we're not resolution ready. Bev, am I misquoting you?
That's my question. Can we do Ben and then Kristen, or Kristen and then Ben? I don't really care. And you guys can unmute and take down your hands. We're informal at this point.
No, but I just want Bev to answer. Am I correct?
I think that's right.
Okay.
I mean, the only linkage I could think of at the very general level, Courtney, that you're speaking about, is that the incoming mayor, Adams, has spoken about his real effort to involve community, right? So maybe addressing his chancellor and who actually appoints the head of the SCA, and who has now been selected, to say one area where, community input is really critical is school construction renovation projects, and cite these as being two. Maybe I'm just making this up on the top of my head. I'm not.
Well, that's fine. That's fine.
So, and link it to some of his public statements around, for policing, he believes deeply in community involvement. In these other areas, he's talked about it. And this is an area we wish to call to his attention as one where community boards and CECs both have a very critical role to play in the ongoing management to ensure that communities are not impacted adversely, something like that.
Yeah.
That's the only,
yeah.
In general, so I don't know if we certainly aren't in a position to say anything specific.
No. Ben, what were you going to say?
Yeah. I was just thinking about, I've done a lot of renovating of my my own personal property in the past, and it seems like there's been a lot of deadlines, and deadlines just keep getting blown through, and now there's a new deadline because people are getting more and more fed up. Is there, I'm thinking about my past contracts, and I think there's just a financial penalty or some sort of bonus if they get it done in time, or penalty if they don't. And if there isn't any sort of stick like that or carrot, then they can, they face more and more anger, but they basically just can keep blowing through deadlines. So have we crafted in the agreement with them anything that has some sort of penalty that really keeps their feet to the fire?
Ben, that was my point about a contractual arrangement. That the
So
time,
do we not have
the time issue ought to be a part of it. Anyway, Courtney, let me just say, since, and I agree with Bev, there's a new administration coming in the perhaps absence of anything specific or specifics that a resolution might include, write a letter introducing ourselves to the new administration and pointing this out as an area that we would like to pursue more specifically going forward. As you know, I'm not resolution happy. I'm not pro-resolution for the sake of resolution, but I think introducing ourselves, and I think this idea of something that CB7 is, this community something team within our CB7. I don't know how that's shaping up, but to let them know that we are proceeding with this format within our CB7, just to let them know that we are here and suggesting that we would have specifics later.
Kristen, are you, yeah.
I'm here. I'm gonna be a little more cynical, and I feel like a resolution that says we don't think a construction project should take 10 years is like a radical idea, or anyone would be surprised by it. So I actually liked the kind of tangibles that seem to come out of this meeting, where I love the idea of SCA coming to the district cabinet meetings, because it makes them a little more accountable, right? It's like a real community on the ground. I definitely think their school safety meetings needs to have PTA involved, but could also have other community members, whether it's the community board or the CEC. It's just another line of accountability and another group that kind of pushes it up the ladder, right? We push it to our electeds. We kind of can raise a little bit more directly to them as far as a problem, because I think a broad statement or resolution just saying these projects take too long, they shouldn't take that long, is not, doesn't give them anything substantive enough to work with.
Agreed. I think the two things that you mentioned, though, I think are kind of what Bev was, I 100% agree. I think are what Bev was talking about as steps we can take without a resolution. We can do those. I mean, I think we can do both those things without a resolution. So I don't think we need one at this point to do those. I'm just trying to decide, is there, I mean, with the knowing that our resolutions are about indicating community perspective to electeds. I mean, I agree with you, it's not shocking, but it's not great. These projects are 10 years. On the other hand, being on the record as like they shouldn't, find a way around it. Is that helpful? I don't know.
Well, I mean, the question for me is, are they even, at a certain level, is anybody in the SCA even really aware of how long these two projects have taken? They're exceptionally long-lived, even for SCA. And it's a very big organization, and the people, for the most part, turn over relatively regularly. And so whoever's sitting there at the top right now might not be aware that it's 10 years or 11 years. That's a letter. That's not a resolution.
Yeah, yeah. Seema?
Yeah, that's my point.
No, I agree. Yeah, Seema.
I'm wondering if, you know, because I think the data is interesting, and I can't imagine that we have, you know, the only 2 schools in the city that have problems like this. Is there something that might be worth doing sort of borough-wide or city-wide? I mean, about, you know, maybe taking something to the borough board or something that says, hey, this is just a problem, and it's in stark contrast to new schools. But unfortunately, we just don't build that many new schools. So we've got to deal with getting renovations better.
One of the problems you get into is there are all sorts, there's a thing called Reso A projects, which never go right because the very mechanism of them is faulty. And half the schools in the city have Reso A projects, and they are all messes. Reso A project is funded by the electeds. So the tendency is for the electeds to underfund the projects. So the projects never quite get done as promised. Does that sum it up accurately, Bev?
Well, they're always at the end of the queue, right?
First of all, they're end of the
The
queue.
FCA gets around to eventually, but they're not on
Yeah, but
anybody's
which not
radar screen as a priority for a mayoral agency to do.
Yeah, and every school will complain about the Reso A project.
But that's,
Sometimes
I mean,
rightfully so.
but I mean more of these kind of more substantial projects that are actually impacting, you know, kids on a whole school basis.
Yeah,
You know?
I have to believe that these are exceptionally off.
Do you think? I don't know. I'm not saying there are hundreds of them like this. I can't imagine that we just have.
I mean, we had one a few years ago, which was the boiler on, I think, was it PS 145 or was it 149? I can't remember. That just went on forever and ever and ever. And actually,
and there are other projects that are taking as long. This leaking roof at 166 isn't done yet, and that's been going on as long as I can recall.
I think we should do some, if we want to do that kind of research, and it's going to take us a little time to figure out.
a long time.
It's the median time. Where are the outliers? Are they clustered in many places? You know,
Well,
what-
here's a question. Wait. But here's a question. So if what we're, because I think Seema's, is it a question that can go to borough board of like, who's got projects? Yeah. Right?
Yeah, but here's a problem. This is a project that Kristen's well aware of. There was a project at Special Music School in the MLK building regarding ventilation. And it was a project that the people pushing it didn't understand that the rooms should have never been used the way they were used. And it was an unsolvable problem without turning into a huge project. And that would have been the wrong project to make your centerpiece of a argument for SCA malfeasance, because it was actually the school that should have never used the rooms as classrooms in the first place. Don't tell anybody I said that. But they moved classes into storerooms, and there's no way you can get around to cure that. I mean, it's like you decapitated your cat and then you bring it to the vet.
I'm sorry, I have to step away. Did I miss something?
I guess my question is, you know, if we're trying to shine a light on this in a way that's very compelling, you know, what's the right way to do that? And maybe some sort of, you know, teaming together with other community boards might help us get a little more attention to this, rather than, oh, wow, it's really terrible that you have 2 schools that are under construction for a decade.
Well, once again, what is it that we know about and what is actionable? This is what we know about, and this is what's actionable. I don't think, you know, if the new controller wants to do this, great project for them. They have the resources and they have the political clout.
Right?
And by the way, one of these schools belongs to the new controller in his previous council district. So he should know all about it.
Kristen, what were you gonna say?
Okay,
Wait, Kristen was gonna say something. Hang on a minute. Yeah.
As far as our letters go, we could address a letter to the controller and say, we think this is an area that needs auditing. We need to do a little homework and check, because I feel like the controller's office does audit SCA from time to time. So we just have to see when the most recent one is. But I think that's like a real tangible as far as someone to.
165 is right in his whole district.
Not for much longer.
Sorry, borough president.
I was about to say, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Blanche, what were you gonna say?
I was going to say that we are discussing a multiplicity of possibilities out of this meeting. We've gone from a resolution to a general letter to the incoming administration. Excuse me. We're talking about 10 days, I believe, to the controller, to auditing a particular school. So I think we just need to step back a bit and decide what course of action we want to take as a result of tonight's meeting. I personally am inclined to go with, I think what Bev's suggestion is, Bev, I don't know if you want to repeat it, or is Bev still here?
He's here.
Yeah, just busy taking minutes.
I didn't realize you were doing that. I apologize.
Well, are you talking, Blanche? I think you're, and it did come from, you're talking about the two pieces of ensuring that the SCA is at the district cabinet meeting and using also the district cabinet meeting, the district service cabinet, I mean.
I am seeing this as an ideal opportunity for CB7 to introduce itself to the new administration, and specifically where the school issue is concerned, saying that we have had this meeting. There are a host of issues raised by this meeting. We will be following up on it, including this district team that's in formation. And we hope to, and we expect to be in touch with more specifics about the situation in schools, construction being one of them. We also touched on, close to the end of the meeting, the ADA issue in the schools, which, as I think Ira rightly pointed out, it's been in our district needs statements for years. I don't know if anything has ever been accomplished by that, but just to introduce ourselves in the area of schools, education in our district, and that we will be following up appropriately. As a community, not just the board.
So here's what I think. I think Bev's 2 points, which she kind of summarized, and I think originally came from Mark. I'm looking at all my notes. My handwriting is terrible. And actually, we seem to have lost Kristen, but Kristen then reiterated them, which are ensuring that SCA is at the district service cabinet, and also using that new reinstituted district service cabinet to serve as a liaison for DOT. I think those are very tangible things that we can do right now. And ensuring also that the SCA is at those school safety meetings, I think is also the other tangible one. I think perhaps let's hold on the resolution for right now. I do think, Seema, your idea, however, is really interesting. I think there's something really interesting about perhaps reaching out to the other community boards, or liaising through CAC3 to the other CECs to figure out, does every community board have a few of these that have been maybe not 10 years, but that have been lingering, and therefore it can be, and maybe it's ultimately just a very simple statement, but I agree that there's something compelling when it's a broad.
I agree with Seema's point, definitely. And it would give us more strength for action, knowing that we're not just talking about 2 schools in Community Board 7. I agree.
I'm happy to pitch in and do some legwork also if we decide which way to go, the CECs or through the community boards, whatever you think is
awesome.
A good next step. But yeah,
I think you may have a greater degree of expertise in the community boards than the CECs, which is not to say that some of the community boards might have much of an expertise, but I mean, for example, one of the people I work with is land use chair of one of the Upper Manhattan community boards, and I'm actually on the phone with him at 10, 11 o'clock tomorrow morning. I'm not going to talk about this with him, but I'm saying there may be a greater expertise on the community boards than on the CECs.
Well, we're just saying to include the CECs. We're not saying CEC as opposed to community boards. We're not pitting them against each other. We're saying to include.
I would think by the time it gets, the CECs are aware of the problems. By the time it gets to the community boards, it's probably seasoned a little bit and been a little more confirmed in its, I would hope. I could be wrong.
No, you're saying it gets. What is it?
Whatever the problem school is.
Okay, we're not dealing with specific problem schools.
Okay,
right
so
now.
for example, if you have a leaky roof, if you're in a CEC, if it's in one of the members' kids' classrooms, it's a big problem. Okay.
Ira, we're just trying to determine what we want to do out of this meeting tonight.
I don't think we're at the point where we can decide do anything. Okay, well let's.
Well, we'll just say good night and disappear.
No. No. All right. So I think we have 3 good takeaways. I think they're good ones. And I think 2 of them are really practical. I'll loop up with Mark and Blanche, you and I can have a conversation about what next steps are for the, and with Stephen too, about that I have it written down in 2 different ways, district service cabinet. So Blanche, why don't you and I take that as a to-do item? And then I really, and Seema, I do think we should take you up on, let's figure out how to leverage the other and reach out and make contact with the other community boards and leverage that to kind of figure out the scope.
Or at least to communicate with the other community boards.
Anyway.
That we have this tremendous issue.
Yeah.
Tell us about what's happening in your board. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But I think we're just gathering information.
Correct.
We shouldn't even represent that we have problems. We just want to have a conversation.
And then we have a new borough president coming in as well.
Yep.
And who has the overall view of our borough. And I don't know when I don't even want to get city council into it at this point. But okay, with those few words,
shall we?
Sure.
So with those 3 kind of talking with Seema, we'll reach out to you on those other ones. Blanche, you and I'll talk for the other 2 pieces. I'm going to make a motion to adjourn.
Good.
And say thank you.
Thank you to everybody. And I think as a committee, we also know that there is a lot of work that as a committee, we should be doing on this issue, as opposed to taking it externally, just working internally. Thank you all very much.
Okay. Good night.
Thank you all. Happy holidays.
See you in January.
See you in January.
See you as relative term.
Bye.
Happy holiday.